Why is it waiting for me to go live? All right, looks like we're live. Hey, big deal, APG and Johnny, what's going on, fellas? What's happening? I'm gonna try possibly do some typing, typing during this one, but hope everyone is having an outstanding evening. Glad y'all got an opportunity to chime in. This will be an interesting one. I'm gonna start off with, and like I said in the reminder I put on the community side, that by no means am I a professional weatherman, and by no means am I a 100% expert when it comes to DA, uh, water grains, relative humidity, the barometer, any of that. But just I can give you from my experience, and I'll put it in Don's language because I got to do it. I got to figure out to put it in my language so even I understand some of this stuff, because some of these concepts are pretty difficult to understand. But what's up, Grizzly Marty boy? What's going on? We are gonna have to get together one of these days and do another video together. It's been a while. But I'm gonna give people another. Let's say it's only 2 minutes after. We'll give folks another about 5 minutes or so, and then we'll get into the topic. But like I said, hopefully everyone's having a nice evening. It's pretty nice here in Maryland. Not good for racing weather. It's hot and humid. There are some guys out at MIR this evening. I was going to go and then switch the chat to possibly tomorrow, but I figured, hey, I dedicated myself to Wednesday night at 8 p.m. So that's why I canceled out. I was gonna go, but I canceled out and came in for the live stream. So big deal, you can. So you can do, just like the blower guys do, the 18% dampener, or a 10% dampener, or a 15% dampener. You'll gain a little, but you're not gonna gain a whole lot. And by little, I'm saying probably 10 to 15. Um, but now, if you put a blower on your car, that's a whole different story when you talk about changing pulleys. Just giving folks a few more minutes to cash into the stream here before I get too deep into the topic, because I know there's a number of folks that was pretty interested in what we're discussing tonight, and it is an interesting topic. All right, um, how all of these different things that make up density altitude, and I may even bring up the browser. I got a couple. I got a couple. I did. So I did. Let me shrink and move over. Oh, Gary, you're the man, brother. I definitely appreciate that, man. That's awesome. Uh, uh, you've been a stalwart to the channel for a long time. I appreciate, really, truly, honestly appreciate the support. You guys just don't know how much I really do appreciate it. It really keeps me going. And you know, it's finally I decided, you know, to do some of these lives just to you know, to get to chat with folks and just give you. All right, Gary. You're awesome, brother. I appreciate you guys as well. But you know, it's again, I'm not a, well, arguably I'm a hardcore drag racer at this point, but you know, getting into some of these really scientific things like density, altitude, humidity, and things like that, I am by no means an expert. So I'm sure there'll be some scientists that wind up listening to this and be like, "Man, that guy's full of baloney." But I'm only full of baloney because, like I said, I'm going to put it in Don's terms, and whether Don's terms are correct or not, that's how I understand it. Um, and hopefully, I can help some of you at least understand the concept. May not be 100% perfectly correct, but at least you can understand the concept and how these things, you know, how these things affect. Let's see if I can make this bigger. And how these things come into affect your performance, whether you're a blower car or you're a naturally aspirated car. Um, this is going to affect the overall density altitude, and everything that goes into it is going to affect your performance. So when I say a few things, I may get them backwards. I did do some research. I did do some studying, but you know, some of these things are, you know, uh, are scientific stuff, which Don's not a scientist, but um, I'm gonna give it my shot. And like I said, it's how I understand it and how I think it affects my car, and hopefully it'll give you guys some understanding of these scientific concepts. So I know specifically I was going to talk about relative humidity and grains. We'll get to that. But it all affects and goes into the density altitude uh, calculation. Oh, excuse me. And Gary coming in with a question real quick. Let me get to the density altitude stuff, Gary, and then I'll get back to your question. Um, you know, density altitude, it affects everything. Really, this is more for airplanes on, you know, and it affects how they take off, what the weight of the plane is when they take off. So, you know, having those things for aircraft and their performance uh, obviously affects as their jet planes and jet engines burn fuel and air, very similar to our cars. Um, so it also affects our cars kind of in the same way it does airplanes. It you know, reduces or can increase the performance depending on which way the density altitude is going. But as you can see, it's the pressure altitude corrected for temperature, and a lot of a lot of stuff goes into density altitude to make that calculation. So basically, it's the equivalent altitude of where performance wise your car would think it's at, and that's based off of zero density altitude. And basically, the higher the density altitude, the worse your car is going to perform. The lower the density altitude, the better your car is going to perform. And like I said, that's Don's basic view of density altitude. When you look at it, if it's in the 2,000s or 3,000s, probably not going to get a very good time. But if it's like 0 or negative 1,000, you're probably going to get a pretty good time. But that's in general terms. So density altitude, the overall density altitude, from what I've seen and my experience, the overall density altitude affects naturally aspirated cars a little more than it does blower cars. Now, some of the calculations that go into density altitude affect blower cars more than they do naturally aspirated cars, and we're going to get to two of those in a minute. But for the most part, from what I've seen, the density altitude, the worse it is, it's the overall is worse or not necessarily better, but worse on naturally aspirated cars than it is for blower cars. So kind of an example, right? If it's 2000 DA, your car could run 0.2 slower, 0.3 slower in an NA car, where a boosted car may only lose 1/10 or 2, depending on the parameters that go into that calculation. And the two we're going to talk about that affect blower cars more than naturally aspirated cars are relative humidity. And here's the definition of relative humidity. So it's the amount of water vapor present in the air expressed in a percentage of the amount needed to saturate the air at a specific temperature. So typically, as temperature goes up, the humidity can go up. The temperature goes down, the humidity tends to go down. Kind of what I read, and I mean, hopefully I don't have that backwards, but from what I read, when the air is warmer, the warmer the air, the less the relative humidity. The lower the temperature, the higher potential for relative humidity percentage. And the reason that is, when the temperature is warm, all of the other molecules are moving a lot faster. Water tends to condense more than at lower temperatures. And thus, you tend to get a little less relative humidity. But that's a generalization. That's just a generalization. So at lower temperatures, things are moving slower. There's not as much condensing going on. So the relative humidity tends to be higher. And again, you can look at, 50, 60, 70, 80% humidity, huge difference. It is an indication that there is more water in the air. And the two things you can't do with water is compress it and burn it. So that's why when the humidity gets bad, it's taking up some of that room in the air that your car is taking in. That humidity, that water vapor in the air is taking up some of that space. Trying to compress that water, you can't do it. In a blower car, for example, right? You can't compress that. You can't compress water. So if there's more water in the air, less opportunity to compress and add more air into a blower car. Same thing for an NA car, right? It's sucking in. It's not compressing anything, but it's sucking in water, and you can't. You know the deal. You can't burn water. It just doesn't work that way. So hopefully that gives you some kind of understanding of relative humidity. It's just a basic percentage of water vapor in the air at a certain temperature. So that's key to the discussion we're going to have next, and we're going to talk about grains. They are related, but not reciprocal of each other. So they're not necessarily based on each other, and I'll get to that in a second. But hopefully that clears relative humidity for you. Let's get into grains of. If you got any question on relative humidity, pop it in the chat, and I will try and answer it. If not, we got Google. Google is your friend. Believe it or not, Google is one of my best friends. When I got something, a question that I need to look up, or something I want to take a look at or get some information on, Google is really your best friend. I guarantee it. There's someone that's not written an article or a video or something on any topic you can think of. You're going to find it on the internet. So that's where I'd say, go to Google first. I pointed a few people from Instagram. I was like, did you Google it? Google it first, because Don's not an expert. But because that's what Don does. When you ask a question and I don't know what the answer is, I go right here to Google and say, hey, Google, blah, 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 blah. Burned water on the stove last night. Way to go, Bruce. Oh, that's a good one. Okay, you can burn it on the stove, maybe. But you definitely can't burn it in your car. All right, so that's the deal with relative humidity. And at certain temperatures, typically it tends to be it can be the same or worse. Anyway, let's get into grains. Grains are a little bit more important. And again, the grains affect blower cars, because blower cars are compressing that air, or attempting to compress that air so they can suck in more air and push through the engine. All right, so a grain of water, as it states here, is approximately a drop of water. There's roughly 7,000 grains of water to 1 pound of water. And when you're talking about grains, when it comes to density altitude, it's the number of grains in a cubic foot of air, right? So hopefully you can kind of imagine this, right? So if you take a cubic foot, this is not a cubic foot, but my hands, right? You take a block, a cube of air, and if you were to count the number of grains in that cube, that gives you the grains in the air that goes into the density altitude. You need one in the break. All right, I may have to take you up on that one day. All right, back to grains of water in the air. And this is why I say you can have, I know it doesn't make a lot of sense, but you can have a higher humidity but less grains in the air. Or the other way around. You can have a lower humidity with more grains in the air. It's just the way the world works. They're related, but they don't necessarily correlate to each other. So, for example, if you said, "Hey, it's 70 grains today, and it's 75% humidity," just because it's 70 grains tomorrow doesn't mean it's going to be 75% humidity as well. You could have 65 humidity and have 75 grains. Okay? I know that's a little confusing. It even confuses me. But the bottom line, the bottom line of all of this, without, me doing some more Googling and doing some scientific whiz-bang crazy stuff, more grains, bad for performance. Less grains, good for performance. So, for example, just on the blower only, when we ran our first 10 threes, the grains were in the low 30s. It was like 31, 32 grains in the air at that time. fast forward to that first MIR video I did on Monday. So the grains that night were in the 70s, and I was running 10.6s. So that gives you some indication. You know, if your grains go up roughly 40, you're losing three to 4 tenths just by the number of grains in the air. And the humidity was up there too. So if I remember the humidity right, back at Capitol when we ran the 10.3s, it was pretty low too. It was like 30 in the 30%, maybe 20%, 20 to 30%, somewhere around in there. Fast forward to Monday's video. Hey, good evening, Jerry. Getting into Monday's video, y'all seen the humidity was in the 70s almost the whole time. And the grains were in the 70s almost the entire time. Also, relative humidity. As the sun goes down, humidity tends to go up. The grains, if you go back and look at the time slips, I put the grains and the humidity on my time slips. I've been doing that for a little while now. If you look, the grains stayed relatively the same, but you could see the humidity continue to creep up. And that's why I say grains and humidity, they don't correlate. You can't, like I said, you can't say, hey, at 70% humidity, it's always going to be 80 grains. It just doesn't work that way. So let's see. Hopefully that kind of cleans up the grains and the relative humidity discussion. So before I start going back into the chat and answering some off-topic questions, is there anything you guys have on basic density altitude? I may do a video specifically dedicated to density altitude because a lot of stuff goes into that. Barometric pressure, the grains, the humidity, the temperature, all of that goes into DA. So I may try and do some more whiz bang and get maybe some PowerPoint slides and deep dive density altitude a little bit more in another video. But if you got any quick questions on density altitude, relative humidity, or grains or water, if you can, just slap them in the chat, and I'll give you a few seconds to get those questions in there, and then what I'll do is go into a couple questions we got here in the chat. So I'm just gonna take a sip of water and give you all a second. I knew somebody was gonna come in and say something like something. Alrighty, Ed, you got me, brother. Oh my God, here's Mac. We're in trouble now. Oh, I'm gonna stop streaming now. All right, for you guys that don't know, Fubanchu 182, he's a member of the crew that we run around with here. You've seen him in a number of videos. We haven't really highlighted his car. We need to do that, and we need to highlight your car at least once before. I won't say it because I don't think you're going to do it, but we definitely got to get your car on the channel. And you're right. Bunch of excuses why I'm not as fast as Fumanchu. He's saying you're selling it, folks. If I had a nickel for every time I heard that, I'd have $1 at least. Oh gosh, are you guys having a hard time hearing me? Let me know if you're having a hard time hearing me. I can get up a little closer to the mic, and then I have to get my boy in here. He's the IT master, and and fix my mic so we can turn it up some. Oh gosh. That's right. I don't mess with no Hellcats. All right, let me go back up here to Big Deal and Mac and Ant. If you guys want to jump in on this question too, it's a pretty good one. I talked about the pulley change. Like I said, you can do an underdrive, big deal, but it's not going to get you too much. And Mac, I think you've seen like 10 to 15 doing a lower pulley on a Scat. If you can chime in there, let me know. Let me know. All right, Gary's asking me, what are my thoughts? A Procharger on a stick 392. Uh, Whether it's automatic or a stick, I love the Procharger, man. It's just it's that turbo-ish kind of power. Um, if you're not in it, you can drive around pretty much like it's stock until you put your foot in it and start getting into boost, and then it's just it's an animal after that. I mean, if I had a stick car, I'd definitely go with a Procharger as well. Let's see. All right, all the way down here. You have a stock 5.7. ZZZ Racing. All right, you have a stock 5.7, all-wheel drive 300, running 12 pounds. Ran 10.9 at 123. What fuel system do I have? So I have the Fore Innovations level 4 kit. And what that dual pump. So I have a dual 525 in the tank. Ran new lines from the back to the front. And what the level 4 fuel system gets you is it's running parallel. So it Y's out and it shoves fuel into both sides of the fuel rails, both fuel rails at the same time. So they get the same amount of pressure, and it's a full return system as well. So the pressure is always there. So that's the fuel system I got in Shake and Bake. Fore Innovations, level 4. Um, that'll get you. That'll definitely get you enough fuel. You won't have to worry about that as long as you got the right injectors. So injectors are key in that equation as well, and your fuel rails. Right, you got to have the right fuel rails as well. Are you going to interface so you can tune at the track? Probably won't do that. Um, just because Dave's a busy guy. I can catch him at the track sometimes, but Dave doesn't go to the track very often. And when he does, he's usually running one of his cars, or he's usually running his car, the cop car, on the track as well. So it's kind of hard to do that. Now, if I was like Fu Manchu and started getting into the tuning game where I could start doing some tuning myself, and I'd have to switch to HP tuners more likely because like Diablo is painful to get their tuning software because you have to be a business and it's super expensive. So I'd have to switch to HP tuners and then learn tuning so I don't mess anything up. Mac. Yeah, Mac. Believe it or not, if you really got into doing YouTube, you'd be a hit. That's for sure. So that's what I thought. So back to Big Deal and the underdrive, 11 wheel horsepower. Right? It's a little bit. is it worth the 300 or 400 bucks you're going to spend for for the underdrive? I'll leave that up to you. No problem, Gary. Hey, I have no problem getting off. I have no problem getting off topic. We're that that was I kind of went through the DA and the grains and the humidity faster than I really thought I was. So now I can get on to all this stuff. Ant, great question, brother. Am I going to move to air to water? That's always been in the plans. It was in the plans before some other person in this chat actually got me to go nitrous instead. But I think water to air is definitely in the cards. It's just a matter of not if but when. Hey, Jeremy, that's a pretty sharp car. The Plymouth Satellite. There's a guy that runs the Modern Street Hemi Shootout. Chris, he has a 68, I believe. I did a video on it couple years ago. I did a video on his Plymouth. He has a 6.1. He put a 6.1 in his Plymouth Satellite, and He runs mid to low 11s most of the time, depending on the DA. See how I fit that in there? I do. Logan, I do love the shaker. I really, to be honest, it kind of grew on me. I wasn't 100% sold on the shaker until I actually had it and drove it around for a while. It is unique. There's not a lot of shakers out there, and they're just a lot of fun. All right, M Gibson doing a P1X Procharger on my E85 cam full bolt on HP 70. Where should I want my torque? I'm going to tell you, depending on how far you go with your P1X, once you get into over 500 pound feet of torque, you're going to want to start looking at making sure you have enough torque management and maybe pull some of the timing out of the shifts just to save your transmission. Mac, yeah, they're going to tune customer stuff at the track tomorrow. Unfortunately, I just can't make it. Very painful and expensive. Yep. We're all learning that the hard way yet. So it's the best setup. I'm guessing you're talking about water to air, Marcus. I think that's what you're talking about. So Brian, stock bottom end 5.7 Ram, full bolt on, high Ram, Texas Speed, stage 4 cam on a 125 shot. Nice, nice. Now I'm hoping that's a one, it's progressive shot, and two, it's a wet shot. When you talk about 125. Hang on one sec. Someone wants in the door. Come on, buddy. Come on. Come on. Get in. Come on. Well, don't whine at the door and then leave. Sorry about that, folks. Bean was whining at the door. So there's some more information on the pulley. If you want to do the underdrive pulley. Ant and Mac going back and forth. Marcus, are you going to go the HP 90 route once it's all said and done? Absolutely, 100%. We got one sitting in the garage right now. It's just waiting. And the only reason why we haven't put it in yet is so I'm pulling Mac back into this. We want to run a 9 on the stock 70 with the 15, 16 pounds of boost and that 35 shot before we put the 90 in. We may wait. I may wait till this fall. I may do it in the summer. Mac and I will sit down and talk about it, figure out exactly what we want to do. I would like to get a 9 out of the HP70. There's been a few people do it. I know Mike, Wide Body Mike, has done it like twice, and then it took a crap on him, and then he got it fixed and did another one, and it took a crap on him. So, all said and done, a 90 is in the future, 100%. It's just it's not if, it's when, because it's sitting in my garage right now, just waiting to be installed. Shakers are rare, absolutely, Jeremy. All right, X-Man with the fist pump, love it. Looking for a used 6.4 intake manifold. Can anyone help? That's not gonna run me $7 for the manifold alone. Yeah, the 6.4 intakes are hard to get a hold of, and normally they are pretty expensive. All right, Brian. Brian seems like he can. Hopefully, he's saying yes on both. So, hopefully, he's talking to you, KV King. So, Bruce, absolutely, you can retune for the density altitude. It's one of those, you'd have to be able to make multiple runs on your own time, and obviously play with the tune, do a log, play with the tune, do a log, play with the tune, do a log. Um, you can absolutely do that, but for just the testing, tuning, and the drivability for me, I just don't do that. But you can absolutely, if you're willing to tune your car, or your tuner's willing to go to the track with you every time you go to the track, you can retune your car, you know, for the track, and not only the DA and the density altitude, but for the track conditions. Um, if the prep isn't 100% there, you can tune some power out in the low end of the car and have it come in later. There's a lot of things you can do when you're at the track, and you got your tuner there, or if you're doing your own tuning, you can absolutely do that. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, Mac. September, October is when the cool air starts coming back in. Hopefully, like you're saying, mid October. If the 70 lasts out that long, I cross my fingers. And absolutely take advantage of the last 2 months of the year or so. All right, thanks, Marcus. Oh, you was talking about your 125 shot and progressive setup. Okay, awesome, Brian. That's a good that's a good deal. So I'm not gonna say because the video is not out there, not out yet. Once he puts out the video, maybe we'll talk about 125 shot in the next week's video. Brian, if you're on next week, remind me about the 125 shot and why I asked that specific question. Hey, Johnny Pro, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I do my best. I go to the track, I record it, throw it together. Some of these, the reason YouTube scared me so much in the beginning was, if you do your research, people are spending hours and hours on editing one video. I was like, man, I don't have, you know, go, record videos at the track, and then I don't have 8-10 hours to edit a video and make it all pretty and nice. So y'all know me. You get You get 100% done. There are no bloopers. I don't have any bloopers. The bloopers are already in there. So Max says he's going to shoot for 10.5s with the stock block in the blue car. I think he can get there. Yeah, KVNG. Yeah, they are they are notoriously hard to find. They've always been notoriously hard to find, and when you do, they're usually pretty expensive. I actually got way back when I did mine. I got a pretty good deal on it. Uh, what's a good cam for NA now, but still good to use down the line for boost? Uh, that's a tough one. Mac, finish up another 5.7 build. Go for it, Mac. Actually, Mac would be the one to ask that question. But my plan is, we got the Comcam 270 in the car now. My plan is when we switch everything over to the forged engine, I'm going to keep the 270 and continue to run it. I mean, it's a big enough cam to handle everything that we're going to do. Um, and this is this is just my opinion. I have no facts to back it up. Uh, but I'm not sure how much gains there really are between uh, a naturally aspirated custom grind cam versus a blower custom grind cam. I really don't know what the gains, for example, my 270. Um, when I went from NA to the Procharger, the 270 is still in there. I was planning on going with uh, MMX Max Effort blower cam, custom grind cam. People get crazy when you say blower cam and NA cam. It's a custom grind cam, so I'll keep with the custom grind piece. But unfortunately, I ordered the non VVT version of the cam, and I had to send it back and got my money back. Um, so I didn't get to put that in. But I really don't know the difference or what the difference can be between those two different cams. Boosted Boat 5.7 opinions on the 3-liter Whipple. You can't go wrong with it. You really can't. It's just a different type of boost, right? There's a lot of people out there that are hopping on the 3-liter Whipple bandwagon. There's a lot of them. They make a lot of power, absolutely 100%. Um, and this is just Don's opinion. You really can't go wrong with any blower or supercharger or turbos. You just can't go wrong, right? It's all in your personal preference on where you want to feel that power. If you want, a Hellcat type of experience, go with a Whipple. If you want a little more of a progressive experience, go with a Procharger or turbos, or even a Torque Storm. I heard a lot of things about Torque, good things about Torque Storm. But at that point, it all comes down to airflow and how much each one of those pushes pushes in airflow. That's really what it boils down to, is how much airflow you're pushing in pounds of boost. But yeah, nothing wrong with going with the new 3-liter Whipple. Absolutely not. Yeah, Hugh 37 looks like he's jumping in here on the NA cam versus a blower cam, but like I said, I'm sure there's probably some differences there. I I just don't know what they are. Jeremy, I appreciate it, man. I do what I do. Some people like it, some people don't. You know, you can never please everybody anyway. So I just do my thing, run my races, get my different views. I've been trying to move the camera around a little bit, besides just putting it on the windshield, pointing it down the track to the side of the track, trying to put it down on the door, get some door views. This last time I put it back inside the car, pointing at me, to get a little different view. Just trying little different little things to make the videos look different, feel different, little different content. Here he goes. All NA cams are turbo cams too. Yeah. I again, I don't know if it's worth another $600-700 to get a different grind cam. I don't think it's going to create that much more power in the end. All right, later, Mac, man. Appreciate you jumping in, brother. What are my thoughts on the Magnuson? So it goes back to what I just said. You really can't go wrong. Uh, the Magnuson is a good supercharger as well. You're gonna make power. Um, you know, it depends on this. It really depends on your goals, and what you want power wise, and your goals and how you want to feel that power. Like I said, if you want the Hellcat experience, go for the Magnuson, go for the Whipple, go for the Kenny Bell, go for those positive displacement superchargers. That's going to give you your Hellcat type experience where you touch the throttle and you're gone, and you feel the torque immediately. Whereas, like I said, with the turbos and the centrifugal superchargers, it's a little more progressive. Um, it is a little less on all the drivetrain. It doesn't hit that power all at once, though it does come in quick. Don't think it doesn't come in quick. It does come in quick when you stomp it. The power is going to be there. It just takes that less than a second, maybe a second or two, to get that power compared to a positive displacement. Let's see, going down the line. Any thoughts on going turbo because it's much more efficient than a supercharger? Matter of fact, I had a company reach out to me and said, "Hey, we have a 600 plus turbo. We want you to try out, and we'll sponsor you." I'm like, I went back and I'm like, I'm already making almost 800. I don't want to take a step. I don't necessarily want to take a step backwards. But Hugh, you're absolutely right. Turbos are more efficient, um, and they do make a lot more top end power in the end. That's where they tend to shine, in the top end. But I don't foresee me switching to turbos anytime soon, if at all, at this point. Um, for me to do that kind of experimentation, YouTube would have to the channel would have to go crazy and blow up, and start making. I don't want to say maybe Racer X uh, type level, somewhere in that level where I'm making enough money from YouTube, to where I don't have to sacrifice my standard of living to put turbos on my car just to test it. It'd be one of those things. YouTube supports everything I do with the car. For the past couple years, I did have to dip into my savings and things to get some of these big mods, like the engine, like the transmission. But from here on out, it's all YouTube. So if I can't make the money through YouTube, it's just not gonna happen. Um, Boosted 5.7 switching from Procharger. All right, so you're going to the Whipple, from Procharger to Whipple. So man, that's you would be the person to ask. Hey, what's the difference between a Procharger and a Whipple? Once you move to the Whipple, that'll be an interesting conversation. So I don't like to get in these battles of who's better than who. I just like to go with my experience, what I've seen, what I've researched. Um, I don't think I don't think one's better than the other. It's more of um, again, it goes back to what are your goals, what are your plans, what's your budget. The torque storms are cheaper. They make power. Look at Frostbite Ram. I forget he changed his YouTube. Mopar Motorsports, I think. He's got a torque storm on his truck. It makes great power. He's doing really well in his truck. I've seen a number of cars on forums that run the torque storm as well. So Chico, it's really where your budget is and what you want to do and where you want to get to. Um, sometimes it's just like anything else. You wind up paying for a name, so you got to pay the charge for the name to be running the name Procharger. But yeah, it's hard to make a generalized yes or no, one's better than the other, right? Because I haven't done any torque storm research, but when I was researching Prochargers, there's a whole lineup of Prochargers, starting at the P1X to the D1X to the F1A94, and so on and so on, right? So there's several levels there, right? That gets you to the power level that you want to be at, and obviously, uh, the more power you're asking for, the more expensive it's going to be. Like the D1X is more expensive than the P1X. The F1A94 is more expensive than the D1X, and so on and so forth for Procharger. I don't know. Excuse me. I don't know if Torque Storm has got to the point to where they're making those different levels and different claims of what those different levels make. Hey, thanks, Jay Morale. Chico. So I hopefully that kind of answered your question. Um, like I said, I'm not. I am manufacturer agnostic. Uh, really, it's just from what I've seen on YouTube, research I've done on Google and things like that. Uh, the Torque Storm it seems to be a very good supercharger as well. So, um, yeah. All right, Jay Morales. Hey man, I appreciate it, brother. I really do. Oh man, RT Black. You want to talk about the torque converter? Oh man, you guys are don't turn me into a B Mason. I have to do a lot of research to get to that point. And again, guys, I am no B Mason. I am not a professional mechanic, builder, any of those things. I can just give you from my experience, from what I've seen, what I've watched, just like you guys, what I watch on YouTube and what I hear from friends and people that run these different setups. That's all I can give you. I can't, like again, I'm not a professional guy. I like the Magnuson kit. Believe it comes with everything you need. But I really want a Whipple. Just hate how the new ones look. Like I said, KVNG, it's you're gonna make power with either one of them. It's just do you want to pay the sticker price, right? Pay for the name a little bit. I mean, you're paying for Magnuson too. They got a good reputation and name as well, but it's all what you can afford sometimes. It's not necessarily, like I said, it goes to the plan, where you're going with your plan. And then you look at how you're gonna get. Starts with a goal, plan to meet the goal, and then plans change. Right? Mike Tyson said it the best. A plan's only good until you get punched in the face. Once you get punched in the face, plans go out the window. before I can, I need more research on what I'm looking for. Stage 1 HRT better low RPM than 2 and 3, but boost will do that also. Yeah, Bruce, there's this unfortunately, when it does come to cams, you talk to, it's like doctors, right? You talk to 3 different doctors, you get 3 different opinions. You talk to 3 different people about, about cams, you get 3 different, 3 different opinions on those as well. It's really tough to distinguish reality from the chaff. Great point, man. That is a great point. Uh, it sums up what I'm trying to say between positive displacement and Procharger type centrifugal. I can't say that word. I'm just gonna Procharger like superchargers. I'm gonna lump them in. I'm gonna lump Procharger like a lot of people do. Uh, but right, it's more about throttle response at that point. That's interesting. The D1 SC isn't getting you the power that you were looking for. That's pretty interesting. Um, I know wide body Mopar Mike got close to 900 out of his P1S. No, it was a P1X. It was a P1X he had. He got in into the high eights with his P1X. So boosted boat. I don't know what your power goals are, and we're gonna start pushing the D1X, which is the comparable to the D1SC. We're gonna see how far that Procharger can get us. Probably sometime next year. When we get to the point where the 90 is in there, the 90s, we figure out the 90, make sure it's solid. We get the forged internal in there, make sure it's solid. Then we're going to turn up the boost and we're going to go crazy next year. Next year is going to be nuts. I'll just let you know that. Like you got it, brother Hugh. Maybe you didn't catch it earlier. I said the exact same thing. It's a matter of personal preference on how you want to feel the power. Hey, thanks, Mr. Films. I appreciate it, brother. And Chico, you're absolutely welcome. That's what this is all about, man. I'm just trying to bring my experience and some of the things that other people on YouTube don't talk about when they break things or they lose races or they do a supporting mod that's important and then don't talk about it. So fueling, for example, you don't see a whole lot of people talking about fueling when they go supercharger, procharger, or whatever the case may be, or as they build more power, you don't hear them talk about fueling. You don't hear them, talk about having to get new injectors, having to get new fuel pumps, having to get bigger fuel pumps, having to get bigger fuel lines, right? You just don't. That's one of the things that you don't see a lot. It's not a sexy topic, I guess. Maybe not. I don't know, but it's super important topic. Fueling is what gets you where you want to go, or blows you up if you don't do it right. So the 5.7, I'm still staying 5.7. So when we did some rudimentary calculations. We did bore the current one over by point point two point oh two point oh two over. So it is a little bigger displacement than 345. It comes out to 350 something, I believe, which still puts you in that 5.7 liter range. So it is technically still a little 5.7, still a 5.7, a little bigger than a 345 because we did bore it out 20 over. And the reason why we did the 20 over is to help circumvent some of the problems finding pistons. So when you bore the 5.7 over, 20 over, it gives you a lot more options when it comes to pistons. So that's kind of why we bored it out 20 over, is to get more options for pistons. It's just, it was just a better at this point, but it still keeps it within that CC 5.7 range. So yes, still staying 5.7. All that to say, I'm still staying 5. I'm still staying 5.7. Yeah, Marcus, I know, man. I wish I had some solid information to give you on to tell you what cam is better than this cam, what's better than that cam. This cam works better for this supercharger. This cam works better with that supercharger. Unfortunately, that is super expensive, right? And from if I know Robert Holdener does. If you've watched Robert Holdener, here's his name. You know what? I'll figure it out. Robert Holdener. He does a lot of YouTubes. He does a lot of engine stuff. A lot of things with cams and just superchargers and turbos, and a lot of his stuff is LS based. He does some Hemi based stuff, but it can maybe it might give you some indication of what cam's better than the others. I watch some of his stuff. I don't watch a lot of it, but he's another one you can do some research on to see if he's done anything on the Hemi cams that can make a difference. Yeah, Mr. Films. People talk about these stages, and companies come out with these stages, and it's really not comparable, right? There's no defined standard of what's a stage 1, what's a stage 2, what's a stage 3. There's no definition of what that is. So it's tough to compare. It's really tough to compare, right? The stage 2, stage 3, they're custom cams. They're just something that company probably mass produce. I want to say mass produces is probably the wrong word, but they make them specifically, make a lot of those, like comp cams, right? The HRT series, they make a bunch of those. And then you can order a custom grind cam on any specifications that you want. I'm just not smart enough to tell you what the difference is. I'll be straight. I'm going to tell you, I'm not smart enough to tell you what the difference is. I'm really not. So, Alexander, good question. Arguably, if you did the drop-ins for a 392, you can absolutely push a bunch of boost through a 392. That's the only thing with the 392, because the piston rings are so close to the top of the piston. When you add boost, that's when the pistons tend to the rings tend to blow up the pistons because they are so close to the top of the piston. You put some drop-ins in a 392, you can run a pretty good amount of boost pretty safely and pretty reliably. In the 392, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm 95% sure the crank in the 392 is already forged. All you got to do is get the forged pistons to go with it. You get those and drop those in. You can run as much boost as I'm running and definitely be reliable. So once I move over to my forged engine, we're probably going to go into the 20, 25 ish range, maybe further, depending on what we how we do things. We're looking at a few other things for the new engine too, but you can absolutely run more boost once you're forged than you can when you're not forged, safely and reliably. Boosted power goals. It's a moving target, and it's just more. It's never less. It's always more. Gearing up for that 8 second car. I know, right? And once you get that 8 second, you're gonna want a 7 second car. And when you get to the 7 second, you're gonna want a 6 second car. The only problem with when you talk about 8, 7, 6 second cars, you think it's expensive now. I know probably a lot of y'all watch Cletus McFarland. That's super expensive. Hey, Marcus, that's absolutely right. Stock bottom end 6'4", without doing anything. 7 to 8 is that safe range. I've known a number of people personally run 7 to 8 pounds of boost in a 6'4" for months and not have any issues. We did lower the compression a little bit. I did tell the builder I wanted 9 to 5, 9.5 to 1. I think he eventually worked it out where it was closer to 10 to 1, which is still fine because we are running E85, which helps with that a little bit. But I think we're right in that 10.10 to 10.5 to 1 roughly. But yeah, I did want to lower the compression a little bit. Bruce, yeah, you watch him, he'll say, "Do your research." I say that a lot too because, again, I'm coming from my experience, and my experience is limited to the last few years compared to a lot of people, such as B Mason, that has been doing this from the beginning, back in 2008, 2009. Uh, Unfortunately, I don't have that experience. I'm not a mechanic. I'm not an engine builder. I'm not a tuner. Um, so I don't want people taking what I say 100% to heart. And oh, Don said I could run 7 to 8 pounds of boost, and they go blow up their 6'4". Um, but I am just saying I've seen people do it, and they've had good results with it. Rear end ratio. So I have the 309 LSD. Uh, yeah, 390 for the A8s is pretty steep. It's pretty steep. I did have a 370 at one time. I just wasn't, and I was NA at the time, so I'll throw that out there. But I just wasn't seeing, I wasn't getting anything out of the 370 that the 309 wasn't already giving me. I was running pretty much the same times. It didn't seem to give me anything. Uh, yeah, a 370 would probably, in my opinion, I never ran a 390, but I think the 370 would do you better than the 390. But hey, all I can say is run the 390, see if you like it. If not, go back to the 309. That's where I'm at, and I love it. Richard Holden. Yep, that's him. That's who I'm talking about. Ring gap doesn't fix it in the 6'4", though. It fixes it in the 5'7", which, oh, by the way, I haven't got my rings. I think with the almost 112,000 miles, my rings gap themselves, but I've never gapped my rings. But Bruce, absolutely, the 5'7", if you gap the rings, you're definitely much safer than the game I'm playing. So it's not the walls that are thin. It's the space between the top ring and the top of the piston. That's what's so small. So when you start pushing boost, that ring expands and puts that much more pressure on the top of the piston, and it blows the top of the piston off, and then you're in trouble. Absolutely boosted. Pockets won't be able to keep up, that's for sure. So if you go, so Chico, so you're gonna sell your RT and get a scat pack. Nothing wrong with that. But if you're gonna keep your, it sounds like you're going the Procharger route, which is great. 7 to 8 pounds, and you'll be producing more power than a 392. So roughly a Procharger on a stock RT is going to get you in that high 400s. I've seen some people squeeze right at 500, but not a lot of them. Most of them are in that high 400 range. Hey, always angry. Thanks, brother, for tuning in. I appreciate it. There you go. Boosted chiming in. Right? Exactly what I said. 7 to 8 pounds of boost. You're going to be right in that 500 range. Uh, and you'll be stomping 392s. There you go. And that's wheel horsepower. So when I'm talking about 480 to 500, that's rear wheel horsepower, not at the crank. So you'll be making, so a stock 6.4 is usually 430 ish on the dyno. So you're making easily 60 to 70 more horsepower than a Scat pack, and it's reliable. So here we go. So I ran 8 to 10 pounds of boost all of last year, and had absolutely no issues. So I say that take that with a grain of salt. That's my car, my experience. I'm not saying that you'll have the same experience, but I ran 8 to 10 pounds of boost, hitting the track every weekend. You guys see how I beat on shake and bake consistently. Hey Brian, yeah, we did lower the compression a little bit. I think the builder said it was between 10 and 10.5. Yep, Chico, that's about right. 7 pounds of boost, that's about right. Maybe a little more, depending on your supporting mods. So Pablo never had the 390s. I did have the 370s, but at that point, she was still my daily driver. So instead of taking that hit in gas mileage, it was just easier just to go back to the 309s, keep the gas mileage the way it was, and still run the same times. Like I said, it was dependent on the day, right? Again, you got to compare apples to apples. When you're doing these comparisons, make sure you're doing your homework, that you're comparing roughly the same DA in both your comparisons. Because if your DA is off by even a couple hundred feet, that can make a difference in your times. But just comparing my times, it wasn't worth it to keep the 370s, and it was the 370s I had, not the 390s. Self gapping, absolutely. And you know what? That's going to be interesting when we do take this engine out. I think that's something I want to do, is check and look and see what the gap is in those rings when we pull the pistons out. I think it's going to be interesting when we do pull this engine out and take it apart, what it actually looks like on the inside. But yep, we're right at 112 KBNG. Yep, 112. We're almost at 112. I think I'm at 111.5. I think. but we're close. Yeah, there you go. Marcus running the same thing. Hey, Chico, you're welcome. Hey, that's it's kind of why we do this, right? To get that information out there to people that need it. And as you can see, there's a lot more experience with a lot of the folks in this chat right now, and you know that's what it's all about, helping each other out. I've been extremely fortunate, and here I go again, giving my guys shout outs again. But with the friends that I've made, uh, would never be here without them. Uh, they've all been integral into the build. Putting the ideas in my head, actually turning wrenches on shake and bake and the whole 9 yards. I've been super fortunate, and like I said, you got a lot of experience, a lot of people with more experience than me in here, giving you a lot of good information. So here's the deal with brakes. Everybody beats me up on my brakes. I still have the stock 5.7 brakes, and here's why. Um, at the track right now, as of now, at the track, I don't have a problem getting stopped and getting off the track after on the shutdown lanes. At the tracks I go to, be that Mason-Dixon is the shortest one. That's starting to get maybe a little sketchy, but MIR, Capital, Cecil, they all have longer shutdown lanes, and I just haven't seen the need to do it. And when I daily drive, I don't get me wrong, I do play around, but for the most part, I'm a decent driver. Mac will tell you different, but I do play around on the streets too, but I know and understand the capabilities not only of the car but of the brakes as well. When you know and understand your capabilities of your car, you can do things that people don't think you can do. So and that's how I drive my car. Knowing the capabilities of my brakes, I know how far to stay away from somebody. I know, how fast to go. I know how slow to go. I know how to keep a distance. You just got to be aware of all that stuff when you have, this type of power and you're on stock 5.7 brakes. But eventually, I'm gonna have to upgrade the brakes. Um, just don't know when that's gonna be. Hugh, you're 100% right, and that's what everybody does. Exactly. Hugh is giving you the formula right now when it comes to rear diff gear ratios. Absolutely go with the 309s, and then if you want something a little bigger, um, if you want something a little higher, you get a little taller tire. If you don't like that, go back to the tire you were using, or go a little smaller. It's definitely going to affect your effective gear ratio in the end, and that's what matters. It's not necessarily okay. It does have something to do with the gears in the differential, but you can tweak that gearing ratio by the size of your tires. And he's got it right. That first gear in the manuals, I think the manuals come with 390s. Some of them come. I think the Hellcats used to come with 370s, but now I think they got 390s as well. But I'm not sure. Yeah, you got the rip coils. Um, Marcus, if you know, did they actually add any power? That's the question. Or or is it they just help with spark blowout? I think that's my question. Did you see any power increase just by adding the rip coil? Did you do any dynos without the rip coils and then add the rip coils? And did you see a difference? I know these aftermarket coils will definitely help with what they call spark blowout, especially with blower cars. You can literally blow out the spark, and then right, you get the misfire. You get the blinking. You get the blinking CEL. Um, but I know some of these aftermarket coils are better at helping with spark blowout. All right, here we go. Another good question. 15-inch conversion. I have not at this point. It's something I've been thinking about and starting to do some research on, but uh, it's not in the near term future. That's for sure. So Pablo, all right, good question. 10 threes before 10 threes before the nitrous, 10-4 after the nitrous. Goes back to the beginning discussion. We were talking about grains of water, relative humidity, and density altitude. If you take the density altitude, the humidity, grains, and the density altitude and the temperature at the time I did the 10-3s and compare that to when I did the 10-4, you're going to see a considerable difference. So the grains on those 10-3 runs, just the grains alone. Let's just talk about the grains for a second. The grains alone were in the 30s on those 10-3 runs, and they were in the 70s, high 70s when I did that 10-4 pass. Taking that into account, going up 40 grains is a lot, and that definitely affected the performance. Where if the grains if the DA was the same as when I ran the 10-3, that 10-4 probably would have been a 10-0, maybe a 9. And that's just based on DA. I know someone's going to come in and say, Don, you're making excuses. I absolutely am, but I'm making scientific excuses. it's science. Big chillin', they absolutely do. They absolutely do. All I can say is email them, give them a couple days, email them, give them a couple days, email them. I don't know what his list looks like now, but he is busy. So not only does he do the Hemis, but he also does a lot of tuner cars as well. So the Hondas and the STIs and all those things too. He does a lot of tuner vehicles too. So he is super busy. But all I can say is just keep trying to contact him, call him, leave messages. Eventually, he will get back to you. I stand by Dave and Mac 100%. Dave's been tuning the car the past the end of last year before. So he's been tuning for a little while for me. Nothing but good things to say about Dave, except he's hard to get a hold of. And that's any tuner, really. If you call any of the big guys, HHP, they're weeks to months that you gotta wait. Yeah, Jeremy, it's I'm moving on here. So it's you just got to know the capabilities of your car, know the capabilities of your brakes, and drive to those capabilities, and don't go outside of those capabilities. It is what it is. All right, KVNG, I got you. I got you. I'm telling you, these Hemis and Challengers, they just like the 309s. They really do. I got you, Marcus. Absolutely, 100%. I agree with you there. But um, here's the question: Is it worth $600 to help with spark blowout when all you got to do is regap your plugs? Now, I got you, Marcus. If there was, if you'd have told me, yeah, you got some power out of it, and you got some, then it's more of a decision rather than just helping with spark blowout. When, like I said, I was having spark blowout, and all I did is regap my plugs, and I think we're gapped at 25 right now, I believe 24, 25, and that got rid of my spark blowout. So $600 or pull your plugs and regap them. Um, I just regapped mine. Shouldn't run too rich at idle. They do tend to run a little rich at idle, but it definitely shouldn't go lean uh, while driving. I would talk to your tuner again and let him know it's going lean. Um, when you say lean and rich, how rich are you talking, and how lean are you talking? Uh, if you get into those danger zones, even going rich, if you go too rich, way too rich, that's just as bad as going lean. But I would definitely, re-engage your tuner with the numbers so he knows what you're talking about when you say lean, um, so he can make an educated decision. So now we're going on. Now we're going on to launching. Uh, Absolutely. I you seen it when I ran the 10-3. The first 10-3 I ran, I launched off idle. And I was trying to run off a boost the entire night. All of those other runs before that were 10 5s, I believe. I'd have to go back and look and verify, but I think they were around 10 5s, mid to high 10 5s, I think they were. And I was in the 23 to 2500 range launching, and wasn't seeing it. And I was like, all right, you know what? I'm just going to launch off a boost. Boom, hit that first 10-3. And I've done that multiple times on videos. All right, more on the coil packs. Um, uh, I would have to get a set, put them on my car, see the difference, and if I didn't like it, they'd have to take them back, which they're not gonna they're not gonna do. Mac and I tried that already. They say they've already proved it on their video, which they do have a good dyno video that shows some gains by using their coil packs. I don't, I don't. So I haven't done much research into pulleys yet, but I'm going to. Right now, I got a 3.6 that came stock on my Procharger, but I mean, Bruce, you'd have to check into it. But when we were talking about 370, we were talking about rear diff 370 gearing. Hey, thanks, Pablo, man. I appreciate it. I'm just trying to keep up with everybody, and we're bouncing around topics, and I'm just trying to keep up with everybody. Definitely thinking of more questions. Awesome. Save some for next week. Good golly, we're about an hour and a half now. Time flies when you're really having fun. Spark plugs. Ah, very good question. Very good question. Uh, again, this is one of those, one of those doctor questions. Hey, I got something wrong with me, doc. And you talk to three different doctors, you get three different answers. Same thing with spark plugs. A lot of people like NGK. Initially, I was running NGKs. And then I went to, when I went Procharged, after I was having some issues, I went with another step colder plug, and I went with Brisk, and I got them from HHP, and I got and excuse me, they set theirs up by horsepower, and I think I want to say I got the 600 horsepower Brisk plugs from HHP. I'm about to get a new set, and I'll probably take this step up. I think the next step up is 800 horsepower spark plugs, and all it is it's one step colder than the one before it. Bosch Platinum. I mean, as long as you're getting the right, I don't know how to say this, the right cold temperature, the right cold rating for the spark plug, it is what it is. Spark is spark. A spark plug is gonna right. One may spark better than the other, but how much better than the other is one sparking? Who know? Who knows, right? But yeah, I just went with the Brisk spark plugs. They've been awesome. Haven't had any issues with them. Had them for a while now, so it's about time to change them. I've been thinking about ordering another set, and I'm going to get another set. Gap them to where we're at. Like I said, I think we're at 24, 25, somewhere around in there. Yeah, gapping the plugs is key, right? It's hard to believe how something so simple can make such a difference. All right, Chico. Here's the deal. Uh, I I I kept my tuner when I went to the Procharger. Hey, thanks, Jeremy. I appreciate it, brother. That's awesome. I really do appreciate it, man. This really helps me. Not just helps me, but helps Shake and Bake, because y'all know every red penny from YouTube goes into Shake and Bake. I definitely appreciate you guys' support. I really, really do. Um, Back to the spark plugs, or the pro. I'm sorry. I I think I kicked the spark plug question. Um, Dyno tune versus an email tune. Uh, I have nothing against email tuners. There's some awesome email tuners out there, and they're going to tune. So keep in mind, when you're working with an email tuner, you're either giving them information from the track or from the street on which you're pulling your logs from. So you're giving them real world off the street or off the track information to do their tunes. Now, is that an advantage over a dyno tune? Arguably, maybe, right? Because you're working off of full load on the car, how the car is performing, on the street or on the track. So I go back on that. I would say that that is an advantage for email tuners, and I kept mine for a long time. Jay tuned my car for a very, very long time. It's just we kept coming into an issue and coming into an issue. And one day, Dave just happened to be at the track with Mac. I was already friends with Mac. I didn't really know Dave, and he was like, "Hey, just have Dave take a look at it." Dave took a look at it, and I went from hitting the limiter all of the time and was running like 11.2s that day, hitting the limiter, pushing through it, which you're not supposed to do. So when you hit the limiter, get out of it. Don't do like Don does and stay in it. Don't follow my example. And then Dave did some little tweaks, and we dropped to 11.0, and literally I ran 3 of them hot lapping back to back to back, 11.0, 11.0, 11.0, compared to the 11.2s I was running literally seconds before, well, minutes before he changed the tune. Advantage of a dyno tune: first thing you need to do is make sure 100% before you go to your dyno tune, your car is 100% mechanically working order. If you don't, you're going to find yourself in trouble, right? Some tuners will help fix problems there on the dyno. Other dyno tuners, they'll just take your car off the dyno and say, go get it fixed and come back. And whether they charge you again, I don't know what they'll do. But if you go to a dyno tune, make sure your car is 100% mechanically sound before you do that, so you don't run into trouble. Advantage of a dyno tune is because you're on the dyno, right? The dyno is a tuning tool. Y'all, you've heard me say this 1,000 times in videos, but the dyno is a tuning tool, right? It gives the tuner some information you might not get off the street, you might not get off the track. So there's advantages and disadvantages of both. But my personal opinion, and this is my personal opinion, if you want the most out of your car, dyno tune is the way to go. They're gonna tune it as far as it can go. It's gonna be done, right? Now keep in mind, weather is always a factor. Back to the DA again, right? That is always a factor. So you may dyno 500 one day, come back the next day, and you dyno 475, 470, just because the weather is different. It may be hotter. It may be more humidity. Maybe more grains. That's why I don't put a lot into dyno. I don't put a lot into dyno numbers that a lot of people do. But it's again a little bit personal preference. But it's what do you really want out of your car? That's my difference on dyno tune and email tune. Anyone else can chime in with their thoughts. That's just my thoughts. Hey, Bruce, I'm just going to give you, I am manufacturer agnostic. I'll talk bad about, if something's bad, I'll let you know it's bad. If it's good, I'll let you know it's good. BMR, arguably they're okay. I broke 2 of their trailing arms. Arguably they're okay. AAD, at this point, top notch. A lot of the issues I was having, the car, swaying, bouncing around, it almost, depending on what road I was on, it was like, it almost felt like I was hydroplaning sometimes on dry concrete. But now that I got the AED arms on there, straight as an arrow, not a problem at all. But I'm just saying, if it's bad, I'll tell you it's bad. And my setup, if it's bad, I'll tell you it's bad. If it's good, I'll let you know it's good. Heat range and gap, you got it, Hugh. Heat range and gap are more important than, yeah, absolutely, 100%. You want to make sure you're in that right heat band, as well as gap. All right, Sean, how you doing, brother? All right, we've gone about about an hour and 40 minutes. Woo. I'll give anyone one last minute or two to shoot any questions that you have real quick that you want to shoot at me. If not, you can save them to next week. I'll try and pick another topic, and we'll kind of do the same thing, right? Let's do this. Let's I'll figure out a topic. We'll talk about that as long as the topic takes us. And then after that, we'll do some more of the same. Just throw questions out there, throw information out there, and I'll just kind of give you my view or my experience, and we'll just keep going with this format. All right, brother. Cheers. Hey, Chico, not a problem, brother. Again, that's what this is all about, right? It's all about helping each other out, making each other more informed, so you make an informed decision, vice just going off. Don't go off what just anything I say. You have to do your own research. Um, Look at different. Alrighty, folks, you know the deal. Got start doing topics. Yeah, start sending me some topics on Instagram. We'll take a look and we'll pick one or two. And like I said, we'll just talk about them real quick and go from there. But back to Chico again. It's all about helping each other out. But again, I am one person. I am one doctor, right? With one opinion or one experience. Don't just take one or two or three experiences. Um, I should do more research before I buy things. Maybe I wouldn't have bought BMR. Maybe I would have just went to AAD from the beginning. Um, it, yeah, it is what it is. So again, do your research before buying a product. Um, there's many forums out there. There's Challenger forums. There's Charger forums. There's Hellcat forums. There's RT forums. There's Facebook groups out there. There's a yeah. Um, Check out the forums. Check out those Facebook groups. Ask questions in those forums. Ask questions in those groups. Get other people's opinions. Just don't take mine. Yeah, I did talk good about BMR until I broke this second trailing arm. The first one, they replaced. They gave me a supposed new set of their upgraded set, supposed to handle more power, blah blah blah, and it did. All right, it lasted. Oh gosh, a year or so, and I broke another one, and I broke another one. So take that for what it is. I didn't go back to BMR. I'm not going back to BMR. I didn't ask for my money back. I didn't. I haven't contacted them or anything. I just went, bought the AAD ones, and been happy ever since. So KVNG, I think you're talking about BMR. They were really good with me when I broke the first one. They were really good with me. Like I said, I didn't even send the old one, or did I send the old? I think I did send the old ones back so they could look at it and hopefully do some better welding. But this last one, I didn't. I didn't want to mess with it. Didn't want to deal with it. They were only, uh, I say only, they were like $200, I think. Um, I just didn't want to go through the hassle of letting them know, hey, I already bought another company stuff. I'm just waiting for it to come in, and can you give me my money back because I broke this thing? I didn't want to go through that. So, uh, it, if you haven't seen, I'm a non-confrontational kind of guy. I sheer away from confrontation a lot. Maybe I shouldn't, but anyway. Um, that was my experience with BMR. All right, as Pablo said a second ago, alrighty, folks, let's call this one a wrap for tonight. I appreciate each and every one. You know, uh, Jeremy and Gary, definitely appreciate the super chats there. Like I said, everything goes right back into Shake and Bake in some shape or form. It goes right back into Shake and Bake. I don't use YouTube money for anything else. Nothing in my personal life. Every red penny goes right back into Shake and Bake. All right, YouTube KVNG. I'm just going to leave off with one more thing. If you do want to support the build, there's a couple ways to do it. You saw a couple super chats here. That's one way. The super thanks is all in all of the videos. You can do a super thanks through any of the videos. It should be on each and every one of them. And then last piece is a monthly membership. I only got one level. I think it's $4.99 if I'm not mistaken. If you want to support the build with $5 a month, that's one way to do it. Or like I said, the super thanks or the super chats, and that's all I'm going to say. I know I said last week I'm not trying to push any of that, but I just want people to know, if you want to support, there's 3 ways you can support the build. But that's it for this one, folks. Until the next live chat next week, Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. That's it for this one, folks. Till next one. Adios.